No matter how hard I work, I still can't save enough for a mortgage.
The bills keep piling up. I just don't know how to get out of debt.
I want to stay fit and eat healthy, but honestly, where do I even start?
How do I know if he is the right person? I'm scared. I don't want to make a mistake.
These are real questions. Questions we all face at one point or another. And in celebration of the 16th anniversary of City of David, Stevenage, we present our Syndicate sessions from City Studios, where your questions will find real answers. From finances to fitness, from career to calling, from love to life balance. Our community of professionals and experienced voices will share biblical wisdom, tools, and insights to help you transform your journey. Join us Saturday, 18th of October 2025 from 8 a.m. live on our YouTube channel, City Studios, where real questions meet real answers.
Hi, my name is Tope Amujo, the founder of FinRemit, and welcome to this Syndicate session on financial intelligence. It's a program put together by the City of David, Stevenage, as part of the event to mark the 16th years anniversary. So this time is where faith meets finance and wisdom meets wealth. I will be the host for today, and I'm so excited to have you all here today as we dive into practical financial questions, faith-based financial discussion, and design a way for you to build a future that is financially free. So we'll be looking at various issues, and I know you have to just stay glued to the screen now because we have a lot for you to be financially intelligent. So let's start with this simple truth. Financial intelligence is not just about money. It's about your mindset, it's about stewardship, and about purpose. So today we will be talking on different topics around that area. With me in the studio today is Rosemary, a seasoned finance expert who will be joining me to address critical questions that has been in the mind of migrants in the UK, residents in the UK, to see how they can be more financially intelligent, especially in this era of artificial intelligence. So I'm so excited to have you all here today as we dive into practical financial questions, faith-based financial discussion, and design a way for you to build a future that is financially free. So our goal is to learn how to manage your financial resources with wisdom, multiply them with strategy, and honor God in this process. And with me in the studio today is Rosemary. Rosemary is a fellow of the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, FCCA, a strategic leader with a proven track record across media, fintech, and consultancy. She excels at translating complex financial data into actionable insights, providing the strategic information necessary to inform and influence critical business decisions. Driven by a passion for growth, she lent her expertise to mentor small businesses on financial strategy and actively contribute to local community charities. Her commitment to encouraging others extends to her recent passion for running, where she actively encouraged women in the Black community to embrace the sports. Welcome, Rosemary. It's nice to have you around today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this discussion.
Thank you so much, and I can't wait to get from your insight as well. So let's start this discussion with starting a business in the UK. A lot of people have been asking questions around how can I start a business in the UK? How can I be legally compliant doing a business in the UK? Yes, I've had one or two questions in this area that I, from my own experience as a financial expert and a business developer, that starting a business in the UK is very simple, but you need to get it right. So from my experience, before I ask you, Rosemary, like what do we need to tell people that wants to start a business in the UK. So, but I tell them that when you want to start a business, don't start a business that you just feel like you want to do. Start a business that is solving a particular problem. When your business is solving a particular problem, then you will definitely have someone to buy from you. So the first thing I tell people is identify the idea that you want to work on and know your potential users, those that you want to solve their problem. After you have done with that, then you can now begin the legal process. And the first thing I tell people to do is, yes, prepare your business plan. After you have your business plan ready, then register your company through the company house. This is a very simple way. You need to identify, am I doing it as a sole trader? Am I doing it as a partnership with someone? Are we setting it up as a limited company? I'll be asking you some questions around this as well, like maybe what you think one can do. Then after that, you open a business account, then you register with the HMRC. But let me ask before I move on, what other thing do you think an average UK resident should do when they are starting a business in the UK?
Okay, thank you so much. So I think maybe just to dial it back a little bit, I think in terms of, the business itself, I think we should never sort of minimize any sort of business. Like you said, there's a lot of businesses that can meet a need. And so when we think of business, sometimes we shouldn't always maybe just think of, something like Google or large companies, small ideas such as, selling something on eBay. Those are fantastic, business ideas, and so for example, you should always think about what is within your capacity, what, like you said, can meet a need. And also, what is a passion as well, something that interests you, because sometimes when you do things along those lines, you'll be able to sort of push them a little bit further. So I think those are things you want to think about when starting a business, and also managing it around perhaps your current commitments as well. For example, if you're an employee, you might only have time, say maybe before you start work at 9 and after you finish work as well. So you want to manage the business around, what is available, the time that's available to you, family commitments as well. So when you put all these things into consideration, then you can start to, sort of do the process of elimination to decide what business works for you. And so I always say, don't minimize any business, anything that, like you said, meets a need, and is bringing in money and income in. And that is a fantastic business. And we all have to start from somewhere. So definitely that's a good way to go. And I think in terms of the processes of setting up a business, again, that would also be determined by the type of business you decide to set up. So for example, if you're starting out very small, you might decide to do with the sole trader point of view, because that has minimal sort of requirements in terms of structure, and just simple record keeping is sufficient for that. But obviously, if you decide to go down a more complex route, then you might be looking into maybe more setting up a limited company, and like you just said, the company's house, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I think perhaps maybe look at the business idea first, and then kind of decide the route you want to go down.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And I think the take home from this is not on, you don't need to start very big. You don't need to start that google.com business that wants to be as big as Google, Amazon, and the like. And you don't need to own it all. That's one of the lessons from what you've said. You can just leverage on Etsy and or sell online, because it's not necessary that you have to build your own platform at start. And I also like the fact that you are able to pin the point down that we need to know the need and address the need of the people, like I said earlier. Thank you very much, Rosemary. And one thing that you mentioned that also caught my attention before I go to the next topic is the area of when you start making income. When you start making income, then that triggers a major issue that I would like to add to, which is record keeping. And that is the area where a lot of people begin to miss it, because the first thing after you've registered your business, you open a business account and you also register with the HMRC, because I need to let us know this. Because sometimes a lot of people, it is when it's time for them to file their record, file their annual accounts, whether as a self-assessment or corporate tax, before they now start running around looking for an accountant to tidy up their record. So one of the key things, if you are running a business in the UK, is to ensure that as soon as you start making income or earning income, no matter how small it is, you need to keep a record. A simple income and expenditure record is enough, and you can have simple template that you can download on the internet. So that's another thing that I would like to add to this. And above all, I want to say that integrity and excellence is very important, because anything you are doing in the UK here, you have to consider the legality, the integrity, and then work with excellence. So thank you so much, Rosemary, for your contribution on this. And then we are moving on to the next issues that is of great concern as well, which is building long-term investment. We know in the UK here, a lot of people, especially migrants or new residents, are actually busy building, try to first survive before they now talk about growing wealth. So, and in the process of surviving, they begin to end up feeling like, okay, what I'm earning is not even enough for me to meet my needs. Then how will I start now building wealth for long-term investment? And like I used to tell people as a financial advisor, I tell people that you don't save from your excess, you save from your initial income, because people believe that it is when I have extra on ground before I now start saving. So the point now is, how can I build a long-term investment? So I want us to begin to talk on this. I will start by saying, what I tell people first is break your income into 50, 30, 20. 50% goes to the needs, things that you cannot do without, like your rent, your groceries, the food, the basic one, clothing, the basic one, not the Gucci, the Versace one, but the basic one, Next or Primark, those ones that just covers you as a basic clothing. Then the 30% goes to your want, that is things that you wanted to do, but you can relatively do without it. Then 20% goes to savings. That is the first way to start building long-term investment. Then another thing that now comes to mind is that 20% that goes to savings shouldn't just sit down in a savings account. Then you think of investing it. So now let's look at it critically. How do you think people can really build long-term investment in the UK in specific, after they have especially saved? Because a lot of people will feel like, I put money in savings and I'm not really getting anything significant from it. And a lot of people, I know, they make mistakes from that, because there are some other options where they could have saved. But let me first start with you before I now start talking on those options. How do you think we can build long-term investment in the UK?
Okay, awesome. So I think in terms of that, I think the most, I think, fundamental thing is obviously having your budget. That would help you determine the percentage, like you said, the 50, the 30, the 20. You need to know what your budget is sort of looking at, first of all. And then in terms of the savings as well, I think another thing is to ensure that you always, or if you can, automate the savings. That way, there's no um, maybe month to month, it varies, especially if you're a salaried worker, so you have an automated savings where every month, that just like a direct debit. So that ensures that you're being consistent with that. And then now in terms of like the different strategies you can do for like your investments. So the classic ones are the stocks and the shares. And also when you talk about those investments again, you want to also look at your risk profile as well. That could be based off your age. For example, when you're younger, you can take more risk because if something was to happen with your investment, or if it didn't turn out the way you wanted to, you've got enough time to recoup it. Compared to maybe as you're getting a little bit older, you've started thinking about retirement, you start thinking about, your children. So your risk profile is reduced down a little bit. So that might determine the types of maybe stocks and shares you want to purchase. And another really good way of, just maybe investing would be sort of using something like an ETF. And another thing is also that, when we talk about these investments as well, again, similar to what we said before about business, it's not so much how the if you can give more every month to doing that, that's great. But honestly, if you can just even start with, £100, £50, that goes a long way because, along the line you get the benefits of compounding because over time the money will grow. So I think the best when you think about investment is starting. That's the key thing is to start and then be consistent and then choose the profile that sort of matches with your current lifestyle, your status, I guess, or your maybe your family situation, and then you can move along those lines. So yeah, so I think one of the ones I would just probably highlight now is the stocks and shares, ETFs. Those are good ways, and again, you don't have to start with very large amounts, just small amounts, and then you can also use different companies that obviously I can't share any particular company, but there's loads of companies out there where you just every month just have your direct debit go straight into the account, and then you would have selected the type of shares and what you want to invest in, and then you just keep reinvesting. You can even choose whether you want to get your dividends or you want to reinvest your dividends as well. So maybe that would be just like a good place to start.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a very straight to the point and detailed response. And I think the first lesson from that is budgeting, and that will definitely answer a question that was ringing on my head. And I can see some of our guests were even asking. I read a question and that says, what if your income is not enough to meet your needs, not to talk of your wants? So, and that your point of budgeting is the first answer. So if your need, the question said, what if your income is not enough to meet your need, not to talk of your wants? The first thing is you should spread your income through your needs, not your needs to meet your income. So if your income does not meet your need, then it means that either you get additional job or you cut your needs to meet your income. And the process of cutting your needs to match your income is budgeting, in simple terms, without any literature response. So budgeting is just a simple way of saying, how much do I earn, and then how much will I spend? It's not how much will I spend before how much am I earning. So a lot of us make that mistake. We begin to spend before we earn, but we are supposed to earn before we spend. So if your income is £500, then you should not go and rent a house of £550, because doing that means that you are not doing it based on budget. The next thing you said that caught my interest was make your savings an automated one. And that is one of the things that I tell people as well. Like I used to quote it like, make your savings an obligation. Make it an obligation, not a responsibility. Make your savings like a debt that you are paying back. And I love the fact that Rosemary was able to address that critically, that by saying, do not just make savings and spend money first, then the rest you save it. No, make it like I'm paying £100 every month into this particular account. And the point she says is, if you want to build long-term wealth or investment, then you need to make it a responsibility. So the savings is an obligation that you must do. Then the investing of your savings is a responsibility. Because when you keep your savings in an account that is not yielding a good return, it's just like keeping the money idle. And she mentioned different apps. So now I will be mentioning some of those apps. One of them is, yes, and we are not recommending any app, but it's just like an example of the common ones. But before I mention some of these, you will need to take serious caution that investment is risky. And that was what she mentioned, risk profiling. We need to profile our risk appetite. What is our risk appetite? Are you a risk lover? Are you a risk averser? Are you a risk indifference person? If you don't know your risk and you are investing in a particular kinds of stock, then it may be going against your emotion. Take, for example, if you are a risk lover, you can go for investments that are very volatile because they bring high return. The higher the risk, the higher the return. So some of these apps are like Trading 212 or Vanguard. So you can download some of these apps, but you can as a caution, when you are investing, you may lose your whole money. And that's why we tell people, don't invest what you cannot afford to lose. And when Rosemary mentioned that set aside a direct debit, we call that pound cost averaging. Pound cost averaging in investment, which means that £100 is what I can afford. So I would not buy these particular sandwiches that I used to buy every month anymore. Rather, I will be putting that £100 into my trading 212 every month. And before you open your eyes, you are there almost getting to where you are going. So once again, thank you so much, Rosemary, for that contribution. And you are making it very interesting. I just felt we continue this discussion on
Yeah,
and
definitely.
on and on
Yeah.
again.
I wanted
But
to add one more thing before we just moved on. It's also like, obviously I know this is broadcast is reaching loads of different people from different perspectives, but let's not discount also, the ajo or susu or
yeah,
contribution, as well. Let's not discount that as well as a
yeah,
good way to start. If that's what you're comfortable, what you can start with, that's a good way to start as well. Because if you think about it, once you've committed to doing that ajo or susu or contribution for like 6 months, every month you put that money in. So I think as well, maybe that's a good way to build that discipline in. And then after that, you can then say, okay, fine, I've built that discipline. I'm going to pretend that my account is the Agile and I'm going to put that same amount in, and then you can invest it as well. So maybe that could be a good way to start for anyone who's just new to that as well.
Yeah, I think that's a very good one. The reason why I'm happy you mentioned this is that I think it's called ROSCA. That's Rotational Savings Community Association or something, ROSCA. And even now we have a fintech app, like for example, our FinRemit app is revolutionizing that, where people can even digitize the stuff. So that's a very good example, and it's like a zero interest savings opportunity, savings and lending within your community of like minds. The only caveat to that is make sure when you are doing that, you do it with trusted people. That
Yes.
meanwhile is also a risk. It's also a
Yeah.
risk.
Yes,
So
it is.
and if you don't take the risk, you won't get the benefit. So thank you for adding that as well. So you can also consider Rosca, our guest, our audience. You can consider Rosca, which Rosemary just mentioned now. That is Rotational Savings Community Association or thereabouts. You can Google it and see if I'm very right or not. So now that takes us to a very important topic: saving for a house deposit. We all know that in this UK, you rent a house, you are paying rent, and invariably you are likely paying mortgage of your landlord. So you pay rent for 5 years. I've had people that have been in a rented apartment for 5 years. Maybe they are paying £700 every month. And after 5, 6, 7 years, they are leaving that property, perhaps to another rented house. There is nothing the landlord is giving back to them. All they say is goodbye. So that makes us begin to educate people that rent you are paying to your landlord could be that he is also paying mortgage on that property. So if you can afford to pay rent, then you can afford to pay mortgage. The only difference is that deposit. The deposit is what makes you different from a house owner and a tenant. And that is why I want us to address this critical question in this session. So savings for a house deposit. I know averagely in this UK now is either, if you're a first-time buyer, you need to save like 10%. You need to get a deposit of 10%. So if you are buying a property of say 300,000, you need 30,000. And then after you pay the 30,000, the rest now goes over depending on your age and the likes and the likes. That's to get a mortgage. So in your opinion, how do you think one can easily, like you have mentioned, I think I have a testimony of people that has used the group ajo thing to even get their money, and then they use that money as a deposit for their first house. So do you think there are other easy way or benefits? Like I have one, but I want to hear yours first before I added that to it. What are the easy way that you think an average UK resident can save to to raise deposits for their mortgage rather than just paying rent for years and nothing is coming back to them.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sure. Yeah, so I think, obviously, like you said, the deposit is like the key thing, the major thing that separates a renter from a homeowner. And when you talk about that, that large amount, say 30,000, 20,000, 40,000, that's a huge amount. Like when you earn your salary, at the end of the month and you take away all the expenses, putting that aside, that amount of money, and then having to just wait so many years to build it up, it takes a lot of commitment. So again, just pulling it back to what we said earlier on about number one is, okay, knowing where is your starting point, obviously your budget, what you have left, how much you can, and then just finding ways and setting a goal. Okay, so setting a goal. So for example, if you decided that you want to live in Stevenage, it's not a bad idea to have a look at how much houses cost in Stevenage, and then seeing, okay, if I need to put down a certain percentage, this is how much I need to put down, and then breaking it down to say, okay, maybe realistically, based off my current budget, this is how much or how long it's going to take me to reach that goal, and then you can now think, okay, am I willing to wait that long, considering that possibly houses would have gone up, the house price would have gone up maybe by the time you reach that goal as well. So, you may need to add a buffer to that as well. And so looking at that and going, okay, am I going to wait that long, or am I going to be a bit more creative in the way that I'm going to have to build up this deposit? So when I say creative is, for example, we know that you need to have more income to save more, to make that deposit grow faster, bigger. So we're looking at those businesses again that we've talked about, those side hustles, anything else that can pull in a little more income, or maybe a better job or something like that. And then also as well, are you doing it on your own, or are you doing it with other people as well? For example, maybe another thing to consider would be maybe to choose a different area, because that could possibly mean you could get a lower house
Yeah.
price. Could it be also that maybe you have to be I'd say maybe right now, maybe I won't be able to buy a family house. Maybe I'll buy an investment property instead. So right now, maybe what I have saved might not be able to buy a family house. Maybe I'll buy something smaller that I would perhaps maybe refurbish, maybe and then resell it, or if possible, maybe take more the investment, what or the equity out of the property, maybe add some more to it and buy a family home. Maybe that's another creative way
Yeah.
you could do it. Doing with other people as well. I don't think we talk enough about that especially in our community, about maybe possibly joining hands, maybe another person, and there are legal structures that will manage that. And you can just join hands to buy a property again and decide which strategy you want to use, whether it's the buy and the resell, and do that strategy. And then, that way, when you sell it, both of you have an increased pot of a deposit. So just finding those creative ways to make that deposit grow faster. And then maybe also using the available like incentive and schemes that are sort of available. So the classic one would be the lifetime ISA. So that's available to anyone who's aged between 18 to 39. And what the government does is it will give you a 25% bonus for amounts that you've saved. So, for example, like if you save like maybe 4,000, you get an additional £1,000, for saving that money. So that could help to build up your deposit. And actually, even if you're not ready to buy it now for a few more years, if you're age between that age bracket, it's still worth opening it, because even after you've passed the age of 40, you can still continue to put that money in and you still benefit from that bonus. And all you need to do is just, when you're ready to buy your property, you just take it out and use it for that. There's also something called the mortgage guarantee scheme. And that, I believe, just a caveat, I'm not a mortgage advisor, but with that scheme, that allows the government to sort of guarantee you, because you have a smaller deposit. So, we're talking about the 10%, 20% deposit. Those are ideally what you want to get, because you get a lower interest rate and it's more affordable. But say, for example, you have a lower deposit, there is that mortgage guarantee scheme. I believe there are some certain things around eligibility, but at least that guarantees you. So if you have a smaller deposit, maybe that's another scheme you could look into. And then there's also like the first home scheme as well. I think that one covers people who are local in the area, key workers, as well. So maybe if you fall into that category, that's another thing you could look into. Maybe that could be another way for you to, get on the property ladder a little bit quicker. So I think again, just looking at your starting point and then just kind of, looking at how you can creatively make that deposit grow faster and see what's available to you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think you've sneaked into the point I wanted to give, and I was so happy that you were able to say it critically. And you've also given various options as to savings for deposit, for your house deposit. And one of the one that interests me most, actually, it has a age limit, a kind of an age limitation, and that is lifetime ISA. So, which is if you are under 40, whatever you have 25% bonus from the government. And there are also other solutions, like I think Monzo has a Monzo Vault that they introduced, which is like an automated savings as well. But the truth about it is that will still be a question for or middle income earner to say that if I'm not earning, how will I get money to save? The one that is also very important that I also tell people about is like a partner's allowance, because there are some times that I think is it marriage allowance or something. That's if you are if two of you are combining together as partner or legal partners, you could take advantage of a lot of tax savings, PAYE savings. I've heard of people that we advise that almost £254 per partner, and they can claim that back every year. So if you are able to get like 4 years backward and you're able to access it very well between yourself and your partner, I think we may not be able to give more detail about that now. You can raise about 1,000 plus more in addition to what you raise from lifetime ISA. Those are part of the ways to get a kind of a savings for yourselves. We have questions also coming up from our audience. Some are saying that some of these group savings are not really considered as a deposit, that sometimes the financial, that's the loan provider may feel like you are not building an history. So the truth is, if you have a good financial history, there won't be questions to your deposit. Like, for example, you have been appraised, you have been assessed, and you have a good credit score. You have future, because from my own perspective as a finance person, credit rating and credit review is about present state. Do you really qualify now, considering your history, and then your future prospect to pay the obligations. So, and that's why it is allowed. You can get a gift. You can get a gift to pay deposit. They won't bother. So it's not really about, if you can claim the source of that gift, that this is from a family member, this is from this is from that, is allowed. But the only thing is that if you get a gift to deposit and you don't have the potential or the capacity, which is the C's of credit, you don't have the capacity to now pay back, your income cannot meet the requirement, then those loans will not be accepted. However, if you do this from a kind of a well-regulated process, you can seek financial advice. Let me just put that in quotes. If you want to take any advantage of these windows that we have mentioned, then there are some other things that comes to questions from our audience. From our audience, yeah. Some were talking about mortgage and real estate investment, and I'm so much proud that Rosemary mentioned that specifically. Mortgage or real estate investment is about your choice. It's about your choice. If you want to build a long-term wealth, if you want to stabilize your monthly payment for rent, or you want to build a long-term wealth, mortgage is the best option for you. That is, if you are looking long-term. But if you are looking for cash flow, that, okay, I just want to be making a kind of a cash flow, then real estate investment is the best option for you. Because at that, like she mentioned, you can buy a home, a house, refurbish it, and then either sell it, you make your instant margin on it, or if you don't want to sell it, you can now rent it out, and you can even rent it to yourself, and you begin to make some some money from that as well. So it depends on your goal. What is exactly the goal? What's the purpose? What's the objective that you want to go into? And then your money, what do you have? If you don't have enough money and you cannot qualify for mortgage, you can take advantage of real estate investment group, or you can even go to real estate investment trust schemes that can make you have shared ownership of a property without owning the whole of it by yourselves. And that is also giving you a kind of a leverage that you are making income from other sides. I have a question from I'm just trying to juggle between the questions from our audience, since we have people observing us. They said, any advice for immigrants, on how the low income earners can stabilize and build wealth? Any advice for immigrants on how the low income earners can stabilize and build wealth? Rosemary, do you have anything to say on this before I had my own thoughts to it?
I think perhaps looking at how you can increase your income would be the way forward. I think that perhaps taking advantage of any sort of opportunities for training in order to increase your income. I think because that's probably the main barrier to creating that wealth, to creating that generational wealth. So I think, definitely within your community, asking lots of questions, being open to learn, taking opportunities, not being afraid to take opportunities as well. And again, just starting from little and just keep pushing it forward. I think that's a good way to go, applying for those jobs, and just taking a little bit of those risks and taking those opportunities are good ways to increase your income, and therefore, getting that generational wealth. I don't know if that sort of answers.
That's spot on. That's spot on. And in addition to that, you mentioned increasing your income is one, but I also try to tell people as well that while you are trying to do that, consider your health, consider your physical situation as well. So if you know that you don't have that strength to take 2 jobs, 3 jobs, then try to use your skill, because all of us have a kind of a particular skill that can begin to earn us extra income. So for immigrants coming into the UK, for example, the first thing that I used to say is, what is your immigration status? Does your immigration status allows you to do business? Because some people, I learned of some people that their immigration status does not allow them to do business, and they were doing business by the side, and then it was not, during their ILR home office has to say, you have a TikTok shop, you are selling on TikTok, explain to us that you have the right to do business. So all of these little things may sound otherwise, but if we are advising people that, I have a side hustle business, and we also need to tell them, first, as an immigrant, you are not just existing in the country, you are existing with your existence in that country is conditional. So first, understand the condition. Can I do business? If yes, then you can now start some side hustles, because that is also another means to make income. And other areas is, if you don't want to add up 2 shifts, 3 shifts, or 4 jobs to yourself because of your health or your physical state of mind, you can mental and physical state of mind. You can also consider your skill. What do you have passion for? What do you have passion for? Then you can begin to sell that passion and then make money from it. And that may not necessarily be a business. It could just be like a skill set that you are using to make money through. And you can even tell people about maybe how to cook, YouTube channels. But as I said earlier, you need to be careful, know your status, immigration status, before you do any business. Yes, you can have a plan that after I have qualified for this particular thing, then I will start this business. But you can begin to nurse it now, or even have a partner that will run the business while you are still not an active member of that business, so to say. So I think that has answered that question. So the next that we're talking now is managing debt and credit card. That has been a pandemic, a financial pandemic, as I would put, because a lot of people believes that, oh, don't you know that you can get a credit card? Oh, get Amex credit card, get Barclays credit card, get this, get that. And then the moment they have a credit card, what is the limit? £1,000. They draw it up to 999. And then the other one has 500, they draw it up to this. Let's face it clearly. Debt is one of the biggest enemy of peace and is one of the fastest grower of the economy. So an average developed economy works with debt. If you want to buy a house, you buy mortgage. You want to buy a car financing. You want to do this, even ordinary mobile phone, you finance it. So debt is an instrument for economy to grow, but also is the biggest enemy of peace. The moment you begin to receive those letters that your debt is due, you did not meet your obligation at this time, or whatever, that begins to raise a signal that your credit score or your credit rating is diminishing. So we need to talk on this critically. How do you think people should manage their debt? Their debt is like a critical thing. Yes, if you don't take it sometimes, like a lot of people get to the UK and they're like, I don't want to get involved in any debt. You are also not doing the right thing. So having a credit, or either if mobile, a car, or mortgage, is not a bad thing. But some people misuse that opportunity and then get themselves into trouble. So in your own opinion and from your experience, how do you think people can actually manage debt and become debt-free, or not putting themselves into a debt that would cause them trouble?
Sure. So I think, first of all, I think most people don't, want to willingly, go into debt. Life happens. We just talked earlier on about, maybe people who are on a low income and have this, expenses. And so therefore you start dipping into the credit card in order to manage, your day-to-day expenses. It builds up. And then, maybe don't pay off the balance at the end of the month, which is ideally what you should do with the credit card. You should pay off the balance at the end of the month. So sometimes it spills over, then you get interest on it, and then just gradually, before you know, like you said, you start getting towards your limit. So I think, definitely life happens, and you're trying to manage things, and that can happen with the credit card. So I think it's important that, like we've been saying, and which feels like we're constantly, maybe repeating ourselves, is to always assess your financial status, monthly, quarterly, just looking at how things are going, generally, the wellness of your finance. You look at your body, you kind of say, oh, I'm not feeling well, go to the doctor. Look at the wellness of your finances and see where adjustments can be made where necessary in order to, to manage the debt. Because, like you said, the debt is not a bad thing. For example, debt allows you to buy a house. The debt allows you to maybe perhaps get the car. So it's not a bad thing. It's when it's becoming more than you can manage. So I think generally just assessing the wellness of your finances, regularly reviewing, seeing where things can be cut, seeing where perhaps income can be increased, are good ways to manage. And if, for example, life has happened and the debt has got into a point where it's a bit of concern for you, then you then need to go, okay, right, which one has the most interest rate, and is beginning to attack and pay it back. So maybe the same strategy you were using to maybe, you know, build a deposit, use that strategy to now attack and pull down that debt. So again, I think that it looks as if the key thing about all the things we've talked about is income, because the fact that the income was more than you be able to manage it. So yeah, I think general checking your financial wellness, regularly reviewing, that way will help to perhaps not allow the debt to happen in the first place. But if it does, then obviously you can either use the method of attacking the one with the highest interest rate first, or if you have a smaller one, perhaps you get rid of that smaller one first and then attacking the other ones.
Thank you very much. I think that was spot on. And that I think that method is the debt avalanche method, the DAM method. List out your method, and then look at the one with the higher interest rates, knock them off, because that gives you more burden, or knock off the ones with lower balances so that you can have a minimal debt to manage and prevent the other ones from growing high. But what is very important for everyone to know, if you want to give yourself some peace of mind as regards debt management, you should first list out all your debt, because a lot of us even begin to put our cards into different apps and then begin to just put financial burden on ourselves, too many direct debit that we can't even remember. Some we don't even know that we have set up a direct debit on the mobile, on a particular platform or subscription. So all of these are kind of a debt that you need to list out, know them, then manage them effectively. So thank you so much, Rosemary, for that. And even sorry if I would say, the Bible even mentioned that the borrower is a servant to the lender. So it's important that we don't just make debt to make us a servant, rather make us a smart investor, because debt is a means of raising fund.
Yeah.
It's the money you are supposed to spend now. You use it for something else and then spread the payment over a longer period of time. I was telling someone that if you are operating in an economy that encourages credit, then it gives you the opportunity to manage your present liquid fund. So when you are liquid and there is credit, you can use the liquid fund to put in another investment, say a high interest yielding investment, and then because the high interest yielding investment will make you more income than the excess you pay on the interest rate on the debt. So if you look at it side by side and you felt that, oh, this liquidity, if put into this investment, maybe an ISA or a stock or whatever, will give me enough income that I can pay the interest and the principal of this debt as and when due, then you can manage it. But if you know it's not going to, then there is no sense being very highly liquid and at the same time having more debt. It's like just killing your financial position. And that's why she said your financial wellness. And I love that. Your financial wellness is number one thing. Check your financial health. If you are not financially healthy, then don't take up more debt. And that is always known from your budget. You need to first know your budget. So now we're moving to another thing, which is about minimizing your tax and planning ahead. This is a very interesting topic that I want us to discuss. I was in a program recently at the University of Bedfordshire, and we're talking about tax planning. We're talking about tax planning, tax avoidance, and tax evasion. That tax planning is legal. You can plan your tax. It's just a way for you to say, okay, this is how much I'm earning. This is how much I want to pay as tax, whether as personal income tax or corporate tax or whatever, or pay as you earn. You can plan your tax, but tax avoidance is not too good, but tax evasion is the worst of it. So I want to ask that question: what should family do to reduce their tax, minimize their tax? I know there are a lot of tax advantages around. Like, for example, you can use the ISA in a legal way. You can reduce your tax through the ISA in a legal way by keeping about 20,000 a year in a savings account, and any interest you earn from that ISA account, you are not paying any tax. You are not paying a dime on it as tax. So that is a legal way to reduce your tax. And I give that for the first point. So I want to ask you, how do you think we can legally minimize our tax? And it will reduce our tax obligation as a way of planning our tax, making us not to be a tax criminal, which is always as a result of tax evasion. So, Rosemary, I need to hear your thoughts on this.
Okay. So I think with the tax planning, I think the main thing is to get your taxable income reduced before it gets taxed. And the most classic one would be a pension. That's a really good way to, reduce your tax burden, and also, save for the future as well. So I would say that, as much as you can afford it, to put a good sizable chunk away into your pension. I think that's a really good way. And you've already mentioned, the ISAs away as well. A good way to save tax free, because the when the money's put into the ISAs, the dividends and interest are tax free. So that's a very good classic way as well to save on the tax as well. And then maybe the other ways would be based off, for example, if you have like businesses and things, depending on how you, like, for example, you have the limited one as well. There could be other ways to save money there. But I think to start off with, I think the pensions and the ISAs are a really good way to go.
Yeah, that's very spot on. I agree with you totally that your pension, a lot of people says, I'm paying pension here, I'm paying pension there, and I'm not seeing it. You don't need to see your pension now. It's not something that is withdrawable immediately, but invariably, no matter, especially in a country where the financial system is organized, you can't pay pension and not get it back. It's going into a single purse. So pension is going into a single purse. So, and all you need to know is just know that you are paying pension from a particular um, job that you have presently. So that employment, you can go to gov.uk and access all your pension pool since you have entered into the UK. I think I remember I used to have a client that came around and we had to like sit down and harmonize all the pensions into a single pot. And you can even move your pension to a single pot if you want to be assessing it directly to be seeing how much you have saved. But the good thing that Rosemary is trying to pinpoint here is if you pay pension, it will reduce the taxable income. So I'm earning £3,000. The government is supposed to charge you PAYE on that £3,000. But if you decide to say, okay, I want to pay pension of X amount, then they first deduct the pension. Then it is now the balance that will be charged. So take, for example, £3,000. That would be how much PAYE? Maybe let's say, is that 20% or so?
Yeah. So, and remember, you also have your tax-free allowance as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So if you now have to pay maybe £300 or £600 on £3,000, and you now decided to say, okay, let me do pension, and you have a pension, that will reduce. It will still be the same percentage of tax, but the amount that will be charged will be lesser because the chargeable income has reduced. And the same thing applies to corporate taxes. Some corporate companies, if you have company and your company is giving out some donations or doing some things or whatever, you can also save some tax from that, but that has to be clearly stated in your mandate that you have that. Another thing that also comes to my mind, I don't know why I kept repeating this, but I want people to just visit gov.uk to see how they can benefit from marriage allowance, because marriage allowance makes you also to save up to £252 per year. And that may sound somehow, but it's also an opportunity to save your cost. So now our time is fast spent. We need to be rounding off, and I still have two issues that are very, very critical, and that is about some of our audience asked these questions about real estate investment trust. I know we've spoken about it briefly, but I still want us to talk a little bit more. Then we will now talk about I think we've also discussed how to invest your savings wisely, but we are going to wrap it up from that end. So talking about real estate investment trust scheme, that is real estate investment trust scheme now, not real estate investment as maybe buying and refurbishing houses. And real estate investment trust is a portfolio of properties that one can invest into and then become a kind of a owner of that property. And there are apps, there are investment apps that you can use, like you can buy part of the British land, or you can even buy Segro in form of shares. So I want you to shed more light on this, Rosemary, from your own experience as to real estate investment trust scheme. That's the REIT scheme. What do you think? How do you think people can take advantage of this to own shares in REITs, aside from maybe using this Vanguard or Trading 212? Maybe you have any other thought around this?
Sure. So just maybe just touch on it from like a general perspective that, with the REITs, I think that just gives you an opportunity to, like you said, own or be a part owner of something, but without taking on the burden of, say, for example, if you had a tenant if the tenant had an issue, they would call you or things
Mm.
like that. So you're getting the benefit without necessarily perhaps doing the day-to-day work and maybe more of the risk as well. So again, that's another way of perhaps diversifying your portfolio. So, earlier on when we talked about investments, we talked about how, you can, for example, use an ETF and select different types of shares. You could perhaps, also do this as well and have this as another block of your type of investment as well. And depending on what's the REIT, I guess some of it could be into certain maybe areas or corporate sectors also. So, that could also benefit you as well. And then another thing could be, based off your risk portfolio as well. Maybe this type of investment might be more suitable for you, and because you're very low, medium to low risk, um, and you just want, just something regular. So this could so possibly work for you as well. So I think it's another way of diversifying your investment portfolio. And again, when we talk about all these type of investments, again, I think the main thing is to know that it's not so much large amounts, it's small amounts over time, consistently. I think that's the key thing.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's really straight to the point. And like another thing that I do, especially myself, my personal experience here now is on my trading 212 app, for example, I have the ISA one separate and I have the stock one separate because I'm aware that the one of the ISA does not have interest on the income. So you can then decide to split your stuff. Then the one that is on ISA, you can decide to select the RETS products that you can invest into. And one thing you mentioned that is very key that everyone should put in mind is you don't need to own a large sum. It's not about the size of the portfolio, but about the plan to build a big portfolio. So it's not having that big portfolio today, just planning that, okay, over the next 5 years, I want to have £500,000 as an investment. And that is possible in REITs if you are very, very deliberate with it. So finally, we will be closing with this area of investing your savings. I know we've said it all. We've talked about ETF, we've talked about mutual funds, we've talked about ISA, but I want us to go a bit more practical, and that is about it may sound controversial anyway, and that is the reason why I put it to the end. We've talked about helping the big boys, because when you are investing in ETF, mutual funds, or REIT, is like you are investing in big extra blue chips companies, so to say. So now, is there any way you think, other ways you think one can invest their savings to wisely, aside from all of these ETF, mutual fund? I know starting a business is another way to invest your savings, though the risk is high, and then it requires your time, it requires your energy. Unlike shares where somebody is managing it, you just put your money there for them to have more money. So what other way do you think one can invest, either in addition to this or aside from all of these shares, or aside from doing a business?
Sure. I think maybe this one that kind of comes to my mind might be maybe sort of bonds as well. There's another one that there's a one that's common in the UK, but that's another way of maybe investing that savings, could be bonds as well. Which is just a little bit different from shares. I think there's also something called like maybe investing maybe the alternative market, maybe more ethical markets as well. Those are other ways as well to invest the savings. And also because of maybe the audience here as well, we can't obviously discount you know, investments back in other countries. It might not necessarily be your home country, it could be other countries as well. Um, and obviously with that, there's the risk of ensuring that it's legal, it's safe, it's not going to be, dare I say, demolished.
Yeah,
So but you could actually invest in the stock of other countries.
yeah.
Whatever country you're from, that could be another alternative as well. where you can get, good return as well. So that could be other ways to invest that savings. I think it's always worth looking into that. Just also think about perhaps maybe the cost of maybe remunerating the money back if that's what you want to do, like you want to make some money off it, but obviously the cost of maybe bringing it back here as well. Put that into consideration. But yeah, I think those are other ways as well, because the truth is some people will just prefer to invest in where they're going to maybe retire eventually. So they might just want to do that. I think you can definitely obviously seek a financial advisor. You can set up maybe if it was for your children, your grandchildren, maybe trust as well. So yeah, there's so many things to explore. If there's other ways that you want to invest that savings.
Yeah, I think that's just the right word. There are so many options, and the best is seek an advice from a professional financial advisor. And be careful when you are seeking advice. Ensure that they are not things that would cost you your lifetime savings. However, you mentioned bonds, which is a very good option. I would also add that treasury bills, and treasury certificates. So, if, for example, you felt like there are some treasury bills of other countries, especially your countries of origin or developing countries, their treasury bills are relatively more high interest paying, so to say. So you can look at it side by side. And I love the fact that you mentioned that the cost of moving capital, the cost of capital movement and then repatriating the income is also necessary. And you also need to look at the cost of capital, which and inflation rate as well during the period. But if you do treasury bill in Nigeria, for example, and after 90 days, you could do 90 days treasury bill, you could do treasury certificate of 180 days or thereabout. So with that, it is secured by the government. There is no risk of the business has failed, and you can also discount it. If you decide to say, I don't need it and it has not reached maturity, you can discount it now, get your money back, and you just have a little bit of shortfall of the expected interest that you are supposed to get from it. Then another one that I tell people, though is a bit risky, is more risky, is crowdfunding. You could become a mini VC. What I mean by a mini VC is a mini venture capitalist.
Mhm.
Decide to say like, okay, why am I keeping this money in this savings account and it's just giving me 3%? And I have brilliant people that are doing amazing things that I can just give them £5,000, and we come into an agreement. I will crowdfund this idea. I will own 30% of it. It's a retirement plan as well, like you said earlier. It's a retirement plan. I take, for example, I was discussing with a client, and I told the client, do you have any land in Nigeria? I said, yes. How many hectares or how many plots? He said, this is the plot. Do you know that farmland? You can buy a farmland which is in a remote area cheaper. You don't need it for a house to build a fancy building yet, but you buy a land in a remote area, you can build a kind of a poultry pen on it, put your borehole, put solar electricity, and rent it out to smallholder farmers, then put a processing area where they can process it into chicken or blah, blah, blah. But all of that is not your investment. But you can ask people to use your farmland to do their farming activity, and they pay you rent.
Yeah.
But it will be a crowd fund between you and them, so that it will not be that, oh, they are taking away your money and you are having fear of the money has gone. And that's why I said it's a bit riskier, but it's also a good way. If you can crowd fund, that makes you a small venture capitalist, and by the time you are retiring into something that you loved doing. I've heard of friends who has invested into animal husbandry, cow rearing. I have people that has invested into large hectares of palm plantation, whereby the palm trees are there now and they have started processing palm oil. So you have made a very salient point, and that is investing back to where you feel like you want to retire to. So by the time you are retiring there, you are not retiring there with an empty hand. Rosemary, you have been an amazing guest in this show.
Yeah, just one more thing that I know our time is gone. Just wanted to add one more thing is, making your investments work for you. As you were talking, I just thought of, for example, it's very common here where people would buy properties abroad, in Spain or Portugal as a second home, and when they're not there, they would rent it out. That's what we now call, Airbnb. And I think that's something that, obviously with for people back home or where you originate from, that's something that people are tapping into. I think that's also another way of, if you really want to perhaps have that investment, making it work for you, because while you're not living in it, at least you're earning an income from it as well. And another thing perhaps is if you have land as well and you're still trying to struggle to, build up the land, another maybe option could be to maybe get sort of the real estate developers, where they would develop the land and then they would give you one of the properties, as sort of like a payment for it as well. So there could be other ways as well. So maybe if all you have right now is the money for the land, the real estate developer could do the hard work for you and you still get something out of it. Just other things I just thought about as you were talking.
That's brilliant. That's just spot on. And like you mentioned, even some of us that have migrated, our houses are still vacant. So instead of having it there, and the more the house kept vacant, the more it begins to depreciate in value. Then you
And
can
decay.
put it, and decay. So you can put it into structure, and then it goes into Airbnb. And I like the fact that you also mentioned the developer's option, because even recently, developer can even demolish whatever you have on that land, even if you are and they will put it back into a kind of a more modern structure. And they take their part, they give you your part, so you still own a property, and then you still get immediate value for the ones that you have now. That has been amazing. Rosemary, you've been an amazing guest today. I felt like we could continue this discussion on and on, but my director is already winking to me that our time is fast spent. But I must say that it's a time well spent. Thank you so much. I don't know if you have a closing notes for our people, like a punchline that they will continue to remember after this show.
Sure. I think for me it will be, budget, wellness, and the last word I was thinking of was audaciousness. May not have a lot now to begin with, but it's still fine to have big dreams and just take those, small, consistent steps towards it, and just be audacious in taking those opportunities that come your way.
Thank you very much, Rosemary. We appreciate your time, and this has been an amazing time. And you can hear budget, wellness, and then be deliberate. And I will have to hit, be timely. Everything about money is time. And that is the reason why our time is being paid for. So when you get that money, invest it on time. Don't just save it alone. Thank you very much, our audience. We appreciate your time. And we believe this is a time that has been well spent. Share this with your friends, family that will need this information we just shared. And if you have any question that is not clear to you, like I said earlier, drop it in the comment section. You can also reach out to myself on the email on the screen, and you can reach out to our amazing guest, Sister Rosemary, on our email that has also been displayed on the screen. This discussion can never end, so let's keep engaging. Thank you very much, and have an amazing time.
We want to say a big thank you to you all for joining us today. We hope you've all been blessed by this edition of City Studios. We warmly invite you to be part of our family at RCCG City of David Stevenage, a place where we experience love beyond reason. Join us every Sunday at 10 a.m. for our celebration service, and grow deeper in the Word with us at Bible study every Wednesday at 7 p.m. For more information and updates, visit our social media pages and stay connected. City of David Stevenage, where we experience love beyond reason.